There is a story, an ancient one. A general, landing on the shores of a hostile land, gives a command that echoes through the centuries: burn the boats. He tells his army, and they do. They watch the smoke curl into the sky, the black timbers crack and sink beneath the waves. Their only way home vanishes, and in that moment, something shifts. There is no option for retreat. There is no backward glance. There is only the shore they stand on, and the future they must carve from it. We do not burn our boats. We keep them moored just in case. We build harbors for our retreats. We polish the decks. We keep the sails ready. We whisper to ourselves, if it gets too hard, if I fail, if I am afraid, I can always go back. But what does that whisper cost us? It costs us the exquisite terror of total commitment. It keeps one foot in a past that has already dissolved, and one foot in a future that cannot be born. It is a limbo of our own making. I am not speaking only of grand, epic quests. I am speaking of the quiet revolutions, the book you will not write because you can always delete the document, the love you will not risk because you can always build a wall around your heart, the truth you will not speak because you can always later say you were silent. We think we are being safe, but we are only being incomplete. The most profound and terrifying act is the deliberate elimination of your own escape route. We spend so much of our lives constructing these exits, these cleverly disguised back doors we tell ourselves are just prudent planning. We keep the old job's contact information neatly saved. We hold on to relationships that have long since faded because they represent a known quantity, a shelter against the potential storm of loneliness. We pursue a dream, but only half-heartedly, ensuring we have a respectable, logical explanation for our friends and family, and more importantly for ourselves. Should that dream fail to materialize, we call this being smart, being safe. But in truth, it is a form of self-sabotage so subtle we rarely recognize its weight until we try to run forward and find ourselves anchored in place. The power of burning the boats is not in the destructive act itself, but in the profound psychological shift it forces. When the general ordered the ships to be set ablaze, he was performing a radical piece of surgery on his army's mindset. In an instant, he removed the cancer of what if. What if we lose? What if it's too hard? What if we're not strong enough? With the boats gone, those questions became not just irrelevant, but poisonous luxuries. The energy once spent on contingency planning, on looking longingly over a shoulder at a receding past, was now funneled entirely into the present challenge. There was no alternative but to conquer the foreign shore. There was no possibility of a quiet retreat under the cover of darkness. Every soldier, from the highest officer to the lowest infantryman, understood on a visceral level that their survival was now inextricably linked to their success. This is the alchemy of commitment. It transmutes the base metal of anxiety and doubt into the sharp, focused steel of necessity. In our own lives, our boats are these psychological escape clauses. They are the silent reservations we hold onto. I'll try to be a writer, but if it doesn't work out, I can always just go back to my stable career. I'll try to build this business, but I'll keep my savings untouched just in case. The moment you grant yourself that just in case, you have given yourself permission to fail. You have created a psychological cushion that absorbs the vital impact of your own ambition. The struggle never becomes truly acute because a softer option perpetually exists. Burning the boats means revoking that permission. It means taking that savings and investing it into the business, so that failure is no longer an academic concept, but a tangible, unacceptable outcome. It means handing in your resignation, so that the only path is to build something new. It means declaring your intentions publicly, so that the quiet shame of retreat feels worse than the public struggle. It is about creating an environment, both externally and internally, where forward momentum is not just the best option, but the only one. The shore behind you is gone. There is only the ground beneath your feet and the territory ahead to be won. The moment the smoke from the burning boats obscures the horizon, a profound and irreversible transformation begins. This is not merely an act of desperation, but the catalyst for a latent potential that simply cannot coexist with a path of retreat. When the safety net is gone, the mind stops performing calculations about the likelihood of a fall and focuses all its energy on the singular, non-negotiable task of moving forward. This is where true resourcefulness is born, not as a choice, but as an instinct. It is the sudden clarity that dawns when you are truly, inescapably on your own. The brain, no longer distracted by the comforting hum of a backup plan, enters a state of hyper-focused creativity. It begins to see solutions where before it only saw obstacles. A rock becomes a tool, a fallen log becomes shelter, a challenge becomes an opportunity. This is not magic. It is the direct result of cognitive resources being reallocated from managing fear and planning an escape to engaging completely with the present reality. This unlocking extends far beyond mere cleverness. It taps into a deep well of courage that is inaccessible when an exit door remains in sight. We often misunderstand bravery. We believe it to be the absence of fear. But true courage is the quality that emerges when you are acutely afraid, when every fiber of your being is screaming to turn back. But you cannot, because there is literally nothing to turn back to. With the boats burned, the energy previously wasted on suppressing fear or longing for the past is liberated. That energy becomes fuel. It becomes the stamina to take one more step when your body wants to collapse. It becomes the resilience to hear no 100 times and ask again with unwavering conviction. The safety net, however comforting it seemed, was always a weight. It was a tether to a smaller version of yourself, one that was permitted to quit. Once it is gone, you are forced to expand into the space it occupied. You have to grow to fill the void. This process forges a new kind of strength, one that is both resilient and adaptable. It is the strength of the willow that bends in the storm rather than the oak that resists until it breaks. When you have no other options, you become willing to try anything, to learn everything, to be molded by the experience itself. The goal ceases to be a distant, fixed point and becomes the very process of survival and adaptation. This is the clarity that emerges from the flames, a stark, unvarnished understanding of what is truly essential. The trivial concerns, the social anxieties, the petty worries that once consumed so much mental space are revealed for the distractions they are. They are burned away along with the boats, leaving behind a crystalline focus on the fundamental truths of your mission. Your vision sharpens, your instincts hone, and your will consolidates. The person who stands on the shore, watching the last ember sink, is not the same person who lit the match. They have been forged in that fire, and they are now capable of things their former self, with one eye on the escape route, could never have even imagined. We often imagine our boats as external structures, a job we can return to, a savings account we can fall back on. But the most formidable and insidious vessels we keep moored are not made of wood or steel. They are constructed from memory and emotion, anchored deep within the landscape of the self. These are the internal narratives and identities we cling to long after they have ceased to serve us, whose familiar weight provides a perverse comfort, even as it holds us fast to a shore we are meant to have left. To burn these boats is to engage in the most intimate and challenging form of arson. It is to set fire to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we are capable of. Perhaps the most common of these internal vessels is the story of our own limitations. It is the identity forged in past failures or nurtured by old criticisms. I'm not a public speaker. We insist, clinging to a single embarrassing moment from a decade ago as if it were an immutable truth. I'm not good with money. We sigh, using the phrase as a permanent excuse to avoid learning and growth. This boat is built from the planks of I can't, and caulked with the tar of I'm just not that kind of person. It is always ready to carry us back to the familiar harbor of mediocrity whenever the seas of ambition get too rough. To burn it is not to deny our past, but to radically refute the idea that our past is a prophecy. It is to declare that we are not the sum of our yesterday's failures, but the potential of our tomorrow's efforts. Another deeply anchored boat is the vessel of resentment. We polish its hull and maintain its rigging, believing it to be a monument to the wrongs we have suffered. We tell ourselves the story of the promotion we were denied, the love we were owed, the opportunity that was unfairly taken. This boat, however, does not serve as a monument, it functions as a prison. It keeps us tethered to the person we were at the moment of that hurt, preventing us from sailing toward a future where that grievance no longer defines us. The energy required to maintain this vessel, to stoke the anger, to rehearse the story, is energy stolen from the work of building a new life. Burning it is an act not of forgiveness, but of liberation. It is the conscious choice to stop letting someone else's past action dictate our present inaction. Then there is the boat of a former, outgrown identity. This is the you from 5, 10, or 20 years ago, the star athlete, the perfect student, the free-spirited artist. We keep this version of ourselves preserved like a relic, a comfortable costume we can slip into at family gatherings or class reunions. But this costume no longer fits the person we have become, and wearing it restricts our movement. It prevents us from embracing the complexities of who we are now, the leader, the caregiver, the resilient survivor. Letting this boat burn is an act of honoring that past self, thanking it for its service, and then releasing it to make space for the evolving, unfinished person you are in this moment. It is the courage to be seen without the armor of an old, familiar label. These internal boats are the hardest to burn because their smoke is the smell of our own ego, our pain, and our history dissolving into air. But it is only in that clearing smoke that we can finally see the horizon ahead, unobstructed by the ghosts of who we used to be. The act of burning is so often associated with rage, with destruction, with a desire to erase. But the fire we speak of here is of a different nature entirely. It is a ceremonial fire, a sacred pyre built not from hatred, but from gratitude. Before you can even strike the match, you must first approach the boat with a spirit of reverence. You must walk its decks one last time and trace the grain of its wood with a tender hand. This vessel, for all that it now holds you back, once carried you across a difficult water. It was your salvation in a moment of storm, your shelter when you had none. To set it aflame in anger would be to dishonor the part of you that built it, the part that was simply trying to survive. The first and most crucial step is to acknowledge its service. To look it in the eye and say, "Thank you. I see what you did for me. You kept me afloat when I was drowning. You gave me a map when I was lost. You were the best I could do at the time." This gratitude is not a sentimental platitude. It is a necessary psychological severance. It is the process of taking back your power from the object you are about to release. When you thank the boat, you are affirming that you are the source of your own resilience, not the vessel itself. The boat was merely the tool your strength employed. By honoring it, you integrate the lesson it represented without remaining dependent on the form it took. You are saying, "I no longer need this specific life raft because I have learned how to swim. I no longer need this particular map because I have learned to navigate by the stars." This transforms the act of release from one of loss into one of graduation. You are not abandoning a part of yourself. You are acknowledging that you have outgrown a former shell. Only from this place of conscious, heartfelt acknowledgement can the flame be lit with purity of purpose. The fire then becomes not an inferno of annihilation, but a transformative blaze. It is the heat that separates the essential lesson from the physical, or psychological, container. The fear that the boat represented is consumed, but the courage you found while sailing it is tempered and made stronger. The limitation it imposed is turned to ash, but the knowledge you gained working within that limitation is purified and retained. You watch the flames not with a sense of vengeful triumph, but with a quiet, solemn respect. You are witnessing the dissolution of a chapter, the alchemy of a past necessity into the energy for a future endeavor. The smoke that rises carries away the rigid structure, but the essence of its purpose remains within you, a part of your bones and your blood. This final, reverent release is what creates the clean space for what is to come. If you were to simply cast the boat adrift or scuttle it in fury, a part of you would always be watching the horizon, wondering if you could still swim back to it. You would be haunted by the ghost of your retreat. But by transforming it through fire, you perform a ritual of closure. You participate actively in its metamorphosis from a solid thing of the past into an intangible memory, a lesson learned. The embers cooling in the water are a testament to a choice fully made, a commitment that is absolute. The space left behind is not a void of emptiness, but a fertile ground, cleared and ready. It is ground that has been nourished by the ashes of what came before, ready now to support the new structures you will build, the foundations of a future that is not a reaction to your past, but a conscious evolution from it. The most seductive lie we tell ourselves is the promise of a future beginning. We say, I will start tomorrow, or I will begin when the conditions are perfect, or I will take that first step as soon as I feel ready. This is the final, most tenacious anchor holding our boat to the shore. It is the delusion of preparedness, the belief that courage is something that arrives rather than something we summon in the very moment it is required. The truth that every great endeavor whispers from the other side of its completion is that you are never ready. Readiness is not a prerequisite for beginning. It is the quality forged in the fiery, messy, uncertain act of beginning itself. To wait for the fear to subside is to wait forever, for it is not a gatekeeper to be bypassed, but a traveling companion on the road to anything worthwhile. Therefore, the only possible response to the burned boats is immediate, decisive action, not a plan for action, not a contemplation of action, but the first, physical, undeniable movement into the new reality. This is not about a grand, sweeping gesture that changes everything in a single day. It is about the first, quiet, irrevocable step. It is the moment you send the email, make the purchase, say the words, or delete the old plan from your desktop. It is the tangible, real-world signal to your own psyche that the deliberation is over. The debate has closed. The point of no return is not a line on a map you will cross in the future. It is a threshold you choose to step over right now, in this breath. This action, however small, is the spark that ignites the entire engine of forward momentum. It converts the abstract energy of intention into the kinetic energy of progress. This initial movement must happen while the embers of the past are still warm at your back. You cannot wait for the ashes to grow cold. You cannot wait for the nostalgia or the second, guessing to fade, because they will only grow louder in the silence of inaction. The heat on your skin is a vital reminder of why you cannot go back. It is the discomfort that propels you forward into the unknown. To stand still, to hesitate in that no man's land between the burned past and the unbuilt future, is to invite paralysis. The wilderness ahead is not a blank, terrifying emptiness waiting to be filled. It is a space of pure potential, and it only begins to take shape in response to your movement within it. The path does not appear before you. It unspools beneath your feet with each step you take. Beginning now is an act of faith in the person you are about to become. You do not have all the answers. You are not equipped with all the skills. You are in many ways unqualified for the journey ahead, and that is precisely the point. The qualifications, the skills, the answers, they are not found in the safety of the harbor. They are discovered, sometimes forged in desperation, along the way. The map is drawn as you travel. The strength to climb the mountain is built by taking the first step up its base, not by waiting at the bottom until you are strong enough. So you walk not because you are certain of the destination, but because you have made the origin impossible. You walk because the alternative, standing still with the ghost of your escape route haunting you, is a far more terrifying fate than any unknown that lies ahead. You walk, and in doing so, you become the kind of person who can.